preseason true freshman All-Americans. Now, we don't have time for a whole segment to go through every single player. That may be something we do going forward where we unpack these show by show, because quite frankly, we could highlight everyone. We're not going to right now. I want to unpack a couple of these individuals that I think are extremely intriguing and I think are going to have a really big impact this coming season. Obviously, we think so too. Does Charles Power and the rest of the team here to put them on the preseason true freshman All-American list? But a couple of names that I want to jump into. The first one being 5-star Francis Malago. 6'6", 315 pounds. It's a right tackle at Miami. And we talked to Mario Cristobal this offseason. Got him on the Zoom. Hey, coach, how you doing? Going to be a quick interview. We appreciate you making time. And this is all before we hit record. And he tells us before we even get going in the interview, hey, we saw how y'all rated our linemen. He's speaking again of Francis Malago, the true freshman they brought in. He goes, you were absolutely correct. And so that should tell you how they feel internally about Francis Malago and what he's going to do at Miami. He showed up day one. He was a starter day one. The level of competition he played against at IMG, it sounds like, has got him prepared for this level. IMG, obviously, one of the top programs across the country. And Miami's going to need some help on the offensive line. So they're looking to Francis Malago to be an impact guy right away. 8% sack rate in 2022. It's good for 99th in the country. Not allowed, but they only ran for 112 yards a game last year. 106th in the country. Bottom line, they have to get better in the trenches. So they made some moves through the portal, and Francis Malago is starting as a true freshman. They're really excited about him. He's going to have a big impact this coming season. So watch out for Francis Malago. Going to do some big things at the U. Just going to roll up on some people. So I'm excited to watch that. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you like the video. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram, @JD Piquel. So appreciate you in advance for that. Let's stay in the Sunshine State. Eugene Wilson is also on this list. He's a wide receiver at Florida, 5'10", 180, silky smooth route runner. Charles Power loves his change of direction. And if he does end up playing to true freshman All-American status, that will be enormous for the Florida offense because it provides balance. And that's the big thing for Florida. They're going to be able to run the football, in my humble opinion. You got a backfield in Trevor Etienne and Montrell Johnson to where they're going to feed them the rock. And they should. They're two of their best players. But in order to keep defenses honest, you got to have Graham Mertz, one, be able to deliver the football. They feel good about where they're at with him internally. You got to have receivers separate. Ricky Pearsall, I think, is quietly one of the better receivers in the SEC. Eugene Wilson, should he have this kind of season, that would be enormous. Because then you can't just double a Ricky Pearsall. Then you got to pay attention to Eugene Wilson, too. Andy Jean could potentially do something going forward for Florida whenever he gets rolling in Gainesville. You feel good about Eugene Wilson. He needs to have a big year and play to this level for them to be successful. So that's very big for the Gators. Peyton Bowen is a safety at Oklahoma, another 5-star kid. Everyone you talk to around Norman, Oklahoma, says the exact same thing about Peyton Bowen. Hey, really talented, really athletic, really dynamic. And they always end with this kind of statement. It's going to be really hard to keep him off the field as a true freshman. Does he start game one? I don't know, but they're going to find a role for Peyton Bowen. He also played a really high level of high school football in the state of Texas, and he's so dynamic to where you can move him around on the defensive side of things. They talked about even putting him at that cheetah position, which is typically like that hybrid linebacker spot, but in specific passing downs. So like, hey, 3rd and 9, we know they're probably going to have to throw the football. Peyton Bowen, we want you out there to have an extra DB. So he's a guy that will play at some point in time. Expect him to play early. I love the fact that he's in that safety room with Billy Bowman. I think that's going to be really great for him to learn from him. Peyton Bowen going to be a star in Oklahoma. And this year, the world will get introduced to what he's going to do. Staying on the defensive side of the football, let's go to Clemson, South Carolina. Peter Woods is a defensive lineman, another 5-star guy, 6'2", 315 pounds. You talk to people close to Clemson, and they talk about Peter Woods without the label that good for a freshman. Like, it's not just, oh, Peter Woods, yeah, he's going to eventually be a good player. He's a good player for a freshman. No. It's Peter Woods. Oh, yeah, he's going to do big things this year. Peter Woods, yeah, he's a good college football player, period. Not just good for a freshman. We love his explosive first step at the high school level. Alabama wanted him. Pretty much everybody wanted his services with what he was able to bring on the defensive line at the high school level. I mean, his high school highlight tape is just him demolishing people. For Clemson to get back to the college football playoff, I think it starts on the defensive line. I truly do. I mean, we think back to those Clemson teams that had Christian Wilkins, and I mean, we just go down the lines with all the big-time players they had up front. I think that's the calling card for Clemson, and that's the separator for them to get back to the college football playoffs. So for Peter Woods, he's going to have a role in that. Expect him to have a big role this season for Clemson. Expect to hear his name called a lot in terms of him causing pressure, commanding a double team, wreaking havoc. Disruptive player. They're very glad to have him at Clemson, and expect him to have a big role. Last one I want to talk about here, and this made me very happy to see him on the preseason true freshman All-American list for us here at On3. At quarterback, Jaden Rashada from Arizona State. And Jaden Rashada had one of the most unique / craziest recruitments that we've seen here, probably ever. I mean, he was committed to Miami, he was committed to Florida. There was an issue with the NIL. He gets out of his letter of intent, and you can't help but for Jaden Rashada, I mean, the guy's a high school senior, and there's stories about him nationally in the NIL deal, and it's just like, man, that is a lot to have on your plate as a high school senior. Even being a national recruit, even being a quarterback, like that's more than I think most kids are asked to handle. And so you feel a little bit like, man, it's just a tough deal for Jaden Rashada. But as of yesterday, he was announced he's going to be the starting quarterback at Arizona State. He beat out Drew Pine, the transfer from Notre Dame. Now, Drew Pine got dinged up during camp. But regardless, Jaden Rashada is going to be the guy for them. He is the second freshman to start at Arizona State. The only other one to do it, Jaden Daniels, who we saw what he was able to do during his time in Tempe and what he's doing right now at LSU. I would love nothing more for Jaden Rashada to be on this list at the end of the regular season. I would love to see him just go out there, deal dimes, have a several thousand passing yard season. Heck, maybe he gets on that all Pac-12 team. Like, I would love for nothing more than for him to go and ball out. Because you know what that would do? What's attached to his name right now is his recruitment and what happened with NIL. And if he balls out, it's just a footnote. It's just a fun fact about Jaden Rashada, as he's now known as one of the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12, one of the best quarterbacks on the West Coast. So I would love for him to just kind of dry erase all that, put that to the back, and for him to have a great season. So very encouraged to see him on this list. Extremely talented player, big frame, good arm. Like, you watch the tape, and that speaks for itself with the way that he delivers the football. So a lot of freshmen here that we got to talk about. Outside of just these guys, I didn't even mention Zachariah Branch, didn't even mention Caleb Downs, which we could also continue to talk about. But Francis Malago, Eugene Wilson, Peyton Bowen, Peter Woods, Jaden Rashada, all dudes that are on the preseason true freshman All-American list for us here at On3, and all names that just college football fans in general are going to get to know here very well in the not too distant future. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.